afternoon, everybody. Everybody's good? Yes, sir. Great. Well, I would say today is a decent day and some decent news that we received today. I'm Tyler Bailey. I have the honor of representing Jarvis McKenzie. I got a call last night from one of the assistant U.S. attorneys that there was going to be an announcement about this indictment that came down from the Department of Justice. And I called Mr. McKenzie when he was at work and to let him know about the indictment that was announced in the press conference, and he wanted to address y'all today. But before we get started, I want to thank a few people. I want to thank the U.S. Attorney Brian Sterling for his efforts in seeing this prosecution to where it is today. Assistant U.S. Attorney Lamar File, who has been actively involved with us because he's been keeping us informed about the status of the federal investigation and the indictment that was handed down. Sheriff Leon Lott, who did an excellent job in the arrest that they made on this and their investigation into this matter as well. I had a phone conversation with him today, and he let me know about his conversation that he had with Brian Sterling the day of this happening. So I think that sends a really strong message about the law enforcement partnership that was reiterated earlier, that hate crimes have no place in South Carolina. And while we are thankful for the federal government, the main justice as well, Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office, Sheriff Lott, there's still one missing person or a party from this conversation, which is the state. I think this reiterates the need that there needs to be a statewide hate crime bill. The federal government can say that. There's no reason why the South Carolina legislator should not be in a position to pass a statewide hate crime bill. This is really one step in Jarvis's recovery, and one thing we have talked about is full justice, which means you need there to be criminal responsibility on all levels to really weed things out. That's federal, as you see. You have the Richland County hate crime ordinance. There's also other state crimes he's accused of committing. You have the federal hate crime regarding housing and the firearms, and he's going to receive some responsibility for that. There will be civil responsibility that he will have to own up to that we will be pursuing. But it's really important that the state look as a public body about what they can do to show that hate crimes have no place here. And Mr. McKenzie is pleased with where we are today, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And he'll make some brief statements. We'll take some questions, and we'll go from there. Go ahead. Are you ready?
Well, moving forward, I'm glad that the government has stepping up and moving forward with this situation at hand, and maybe we can get something done, you know, moving forward for the state.
Questions that y'all have?
Jarvis, Derek Rush for WIS. You know, Sheriff Lott spoke about it earlier today, and I just couldn't let it go. He said that while this wasn't a physical damage per se to you, this is something that mentally, psychologically, emotionally could take a toll for the rest of your life. And we spoke with you not long after it happened. Has it gotten any easier to process? We're almost 6 months since everything happened at this point. Has it gotten any easier to process some of those events?
Well, it's still a challenge for me and my family, but moving forward, I'm kind of like coming along, you know, from here and there. It crossed my mind that this is what happened to me. But other than that, you know, moving forward, man, it's a process still.
Have there been any conversations? I know Attorney General Allen Wilson sent the letter about local and county hate crime ordinances being unconstitutional without a statewide one. So I just wonder if you guys have had any conversations with the Attorney General's office about this, or if there are other charges the state is pursuing.
Well, I could answer that. There has been no conversations with the Attorney General's office about that. I do believe that local government has the ability to enact ordinances to protect their people and also kind of codify the local people's values and their policy. And you heard Brian Sterling today say that hate crimes has no place in South Carolina. You heard Sheriff Lott say the same thing. So I think the state should say the same thing as well. I think the people certainly believe it has no place. And so, no, there's been no conversations. We will welcome conversations with Alan Wilson's office, and they want to also seek to prosecute Feckle in this matter for some hate-related crimes or other crimes that maybe he's not been charged with, we'll welcome that as well.
Would you be able, I'm sorry.
Tell me, what was your initial reaction when you first found out the government was stepping in?
I was glad that they had stepped in. You know, it was like, I didn't think that was gonna happen. I didn't think that was gonna move forward for it.
When did you guys first find out?
Yesterday is when we found out. So we knew that they were looking into it for a long time now. And to be honest with you, I was surprised because the press release with this came from Maine Justice. So I think that really shows the priority that the federal government looked at this situation all the way up in D.C. to our U.S. Attorney's Office here. And so I think that shows how important this was. So I was surprised, you know, being from South Carolina and seeing things a lot of times. There's been some people who try to downplay this entire incident, and you see from the highest levels of government here, that was not the situation. They issued their statement from Maine Justice. Our U.S. Attorney's Office has their own press office who does issue press releases from time to time, but this come from Washington was a shocker to me. And as Jarvis just said, he was surprised, and I think a lot of people are surprised. It was a pleasant surprise, and I think what's also surprising that there still has not been any action on the state's behalf to do something here when you see the federal government, the Department of Justice, Maine Justice, thinks something needs to be done.
Mr. McKenzie, could you reiterate how you felt that day when this happened?
When it happened,
Yes.
well, I was shocked. You know, it really had, I didn't believe it had happened till it dawned on me later on. I was like, wow, did this just happen? Especially in my neighborhood, you know.
I was going to ask you if you could, for those of us who maybe weren't around, can you explain to us what led up to us being here today?
I was standing on the corner, waiting to go to work that morning, and the fella, he upped his gun and shot it and said what he had to say, and I ran. That's pretty much what happened.
And from there, well, I'll just add for some context, that happened. Before then, you had Richland County Council, Councilwoman Tyra Little. She introduced a local hate crime ordinance. This situation happened with Jarvis, and for a while, Jarvis, he went to work the day this happened. He's getting off work now. You can tell he's hard working. He was not going to say anything about it. And after conversations, he wanted to use his experience and share that with people and hopefully make things better for others. He did that. And then now you see the U.S. Attorney's Office issue that indictment. So I think that really shows a collective, how powerful one person's voice can be. And if Jarvis never said anything, I truthfully believe that this day would not be here today if he kept his mouth shut.
Mr. Bailey, you mentioned we heard about the federal indictment earlier today. You also brought up some civil pursuits that you guys are taking. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, we have not filed anything officially as of today, but we will be filing a civil lawsuit. There's going to be full responsibility here. There's not going to just be criminal culpability civilly. There's going to be responsibility for Mr. Feckle and anybody else who aided and allowed them access to firearms knowing that he had racial animus in his heart. The federal government did a lot of due diligence before they did this indictment. They do not make indictments like this if there isn't a strong case, and I think that shows that there's a lot out there. There's still some more fact-finding we have to do regarding ownership of firearms, how he had access to the firearms, and if more of other information regarding his racial animus that we see played out here. That should not be the case. You see, he lives in that neighborhood. He has a right to be in that neighborhood, and using violence and intimidation to try to scare him, feeling like he's not welcome, serves no place. And so hopefully the civil lawsuit is going to go a long way in helping Mr. McKenzie recover, but also just putting on notice to others that the federal government believes this is a problem. You see local government thinks it's a problem, and there could be civil responsibility if you use hate in a way that is wrong, which is any time you use it.
Any particular charges that you're thinking of right now?
I can't say, but I'll be sure to let y'all know once it's done.
I'm curious, this morning, Lott and Sterling both mentioned kind of the physical and mental toll, and, being the first person going through this with the Richland County ordinance, have there been victim services or victims advocate services where it relates to either, psychological, mental, spiritual help that have have been reached out to you from different agencies involved?
Well, one thing I forgot to mention, we'd like to thank the Fifth Circuit Solicitor's Office. Their victims advocate has been involved in this. I don't want to speak too much regarding any services that Mr. McKenzie is receiving now, but there have been people who have reached out. The victims advocate at the Solicitor's Office has been involved in this entire process, from the initial bond hearing to the bond hearing that we had in General Sessions a month or so ago. And so there's going to be a long road for Mr. McKenzie. This something is going to stick with him the rest of his life. And I'm proud of him for what he's done so far. But he's a strong man, but that doesn't mean he doesn't hurt still. It's not something that he still deals with. So I can't speak. I don't want to give too much information about the services that he's receiving or willing to receive. But there are people who are actively out there who are here to support him.
Mr. McKenzie, how has your life changed since this incident, and do you find yourself like living in fear at all in the neighborhood, or just living out your daily life in general?
Some of the time I do, like big crowds, you know, being around people who I don't really know. So it'll always come back to me like who is who, like, you know, sometime.
Mr. Bailey, did Mr. Feckel live in the community alone, or is any of his family or relatives still in that area, or?
Well, I don't want to put too much information out there about his family. I don't want anybody to look into his family. But I do know that he lived in that community. He had access to amenities in that community. And there are people who know him in that community who lived with him. And so I'll say that, but I don't want to put his family into it. At the end of the day, Mr. Feckel is the one who's indicted here. And but we will pursue people who either furthered this and him as well as Mr. Feckel as well.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about how state protections or state law could help people in counties with ordinances like Richland County?
Well, the counties have stepped up and local governments have stepped up because the state has not done anything. They have failed to act. So if the state had a statewide hate crime bill, one, it sends a message. I think the message has been sent here, but hasn't been sent by the state. It's been sent by people who see the problem and have stepped up and done something, from Richland County Council, other cities and counties across the state. The federal government looked into this and they did something, and it sends a message. I think if people really knew, if the average racist knew that by acting hateful to somebody, this is what could happen to you, I guarantee you they would think twice before doing it. And this situation is a prime example of how law can be used to deter crime. You have punishment, but we need the deterrence, and without a statewide hate crime bill, I think that element of deterrence is not there, which emboldens people who may have hate in their heart to do something.
What's your final message for lawmakers as we go into a session this winter?
So I was surprised, like I said, when I heard about the federal government issuing their indictment. We are sitting here December 18th. We have next week, which will be the Christmas holiday. We're going into the new year. And I think that any lawmakers who felt that maybe a statewide hate crime bill may not have the broad support needed, I think they're wrong in that, because you see what this executive in the federal branch has done under the current leadership of the Attorney General, who's appointed by the President and confirmed by Senate. You see that they felt this hate was enough to issue a press release from Main Justice, and I think that sends a message that where most people feel that hate has no place in our community. So I think that if they're judging the political climate, I think they should see from this there's enough out there for the Senate to get a hate crime bill passed and get it on the governor's desk for a signature.
I know you guys have talked about kind of appreciating the government's response, but how has it been watching the community's response to this incident and the outrage?
I don't really see too many people in my community. Like, I be at work, you know, I be in and out when it's dark, you know what I'm saying? So I don't really too much see nobody outside of my neighbors.
Well, Mr. McKenzie, he's hard working. He gets up really early, goes to work. He gets off late sometimes. He's not perusing comments looking, but I can tell you that I do a lot of that. but I'm still working too. But I look at the comments, and I think that the majority of people have shown support for Ms. McKenzie, have said that hate has no place in our community. And I think that's reflective in what we've seen from law enforcement. You do have some people out there who have said, oh, this is nothing, it wasn't that serious. But I think those are the minority. And I think for people to understand what it takes for a federal grand jury to convene, what it takes for an FBI field office to decide to investigate a case, that being given to the U.S. attorneys who then evaluate it, then convene the jury, present the case to the jury, then the jury issues an indictment. That's a real methodical process. And so I think that, to me, is reaffirming of where we are, where people are. It's referring what I think that this our U.S. Attorney's Office has done under the leadership of Brian Sterling. And I'm pleased with what I've seen from community response. And so there's just one other body that has not responded positively yet, which is the state. And I hope that lawmakers will do something this upcoming legislative session. But I am pleased with the community's response so far. And they outweigh those who have hate. Any other questions?
Mr. McKenzie, if you could speak directly to lawmakers about enacting a hate crime law, would you have anything to say to them about its importance?
Yeah, I think it's really important, for the communities. Like Mr. Bailey said, there should be no hate in the community, So I thank the government for moving forward. Like he said, hopefully the state will adapt to it as well.
All right. Thank you.